Today, we're jumping into a really powerful technique for getting way better results from AI. It's called prompt chaining.
So, you've probably been there, right? You've got this big, multi-step task. You write what feels like the perfect prompt, you hit enter, and the AI gives you back, well, a complete mess. It's a super common and, let's be honest, a really frustrating experience.
And the result can look a little something like this. I mean, it's fictional, but it feels familiar, doesn't it? When we ask an AI to juggle too many different things at once, like analyze text, then write some code, and come up with design ideas, it just gets confused. It loses the plot and mashes everything together into something totally useless.
But what if, instead of asking one person to build an entire car from scratch, we created an assembly line? Well, that's the whole idea behind prompt chaining. It's all about breaking down a huge, complex request into a series of smaller, much more manageable jobs.
So what is it officially? Prompt chaining is just a technique where you link prompts together. The output from your first prompt becomes the input for the second one, and the output from that one becomes the input for the third, and you just keep going. It's really just a sequence of simple steps to solve a complex problem.
Now, you might have heard of chain of thought prompting, and it's really important to know these are not the same thing. Chain of thought basically asks the model to think out loud or show its work, but it all happens inside one single prompt. Prompt chaining, on the other hand, physically breaks the task up into multiple, totally separate prompts. So that's the key difference to remember: one prompt versus many.
So why does this work so well? Well, first off, it lets the AI focus all of its brain power on one tiny job at a time. Plus, you get to see the output at every single stage, which makes it incredibly easy to spot an error and fix it. It also helps the AI remember what's important by feeding key info back in at each step. And all of that helps keep the model grounded and makes it way less likely to just make stuff up.
Building a chain is actually pretty logical when you think about it. You start by breaking your big goal down into smaller subtasks. Then, you write a really specific prompt for each of those little steps. The magic really happens when you connect them, feeding the output from one right into the next. And, of course, you've got to test each link in the chain to make sure the whole assembly line is running just right.
And this assembly line can have a few different shapes. A linear chain is the most basic, A leads to B, which leads to C, perfect for something like generating a report. A recursive chain actually loops back on itself to refine an output, which is amazing for debugging code. And a branching chain can make decisions, picking the next prompt based on what happened before, kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure for AI.
Okay, so the theory is great, but where do people actually use this? Let's take a look at how prompt chaining works out in the real world, starting with something you've probably seen and then moving to some really advanced stuff.
Let's start with a classic, the automated customer support agent. We've all dealt with them, and if you try to build one with just a single prompt, you usually get those super generic, totally unhelpful answers. But with chaining, it gets a whole lot smarter.
A really good support chain has 3 clear steps. The first prompt doesn't even try to solve the problem. Its only job is to classify it. Is this a billing question or a tech support issue? Then the second prompt takes that category and goes and finds the right help articles. And finally, the third prompt uses that specific info to write a helpful step-by-step answer for the user. See? So much more effective.
Okay, now let's get into something a bit more complex. For qualitative researchers, the folks who work with tons of interviews and open-ended data, prompt chaining isn't just a neat trick, it's a potential superpower.
What's so cool here is how perfectly prompt chaining lines up with how research actually gets done. I mean, research is naturally a multi-stage process. You summarize, you code, you look for themes. Chaining just mirrors that workflow, letting researchers hand off the tedious work to an AI while they stay in complete control at every important step. So imagine you've got hours and hours of interview transcripts. Just asking an AI to summarize this is a recipe for disaster. It has no idea what you're actually looking for. A prompt chain, though, can handle this with real precision.
So here's how that would work. The first prompt basically acts like a research assistant. Its only job is to pull out the key quotes that are related to your specific research questions. The second prompt takes only those quotes and weaves them into a nice summary. And a third prompt could even draft an initial analysis of patterns it sees, giving the human researcher a fantastic head start.
Let's take it even one step further. Building a codebook, which is just a set of consistent themes for analyzing text, is a huge part of qualitative research. It requires a lot of precision and structure, which, as you can probably guess, is perfect for a prompt chain. In this kind of chain, the first prompt just scans all the data and lists out potential themes it sees. Then, the second prompt takes that raw list and turns it into a proper, structured codebook with clear definitions. And finally, a third prompt can apply those new codes to a sample of the text so the researcher can easily check the AI's work before moving on. It's just a brilliant way to build rigor into an AI-powered workflow.
So, you're probably getting excited to build your own chains now. Let's wrap this up with a few key things to keep in mind so you get the absolute best results.
Now, it's a really powerful tool, but like anything, there are trade-offs. On the one hand, you're going to get way higher accuracy and a ton more control. But on the other hand, yeah, it takes more thought to design, and every extra step can add a little bit of time and maybe cost. It's all about finding that right balance for whatever you're working on.
And here are some golden rules. Always start with a clear goal. Break down your tasks by what they do, like one prompt for generating ideas, another for structuring them. And this is so important. Test each link in your chain by itself before you connect them. And never, ever forget to check the outputs at each step. This whole thing is about augmenting your skills, not replacing them.
Which really brings us to the most important takeaway of all. This is the central idea from all the research. Prompt chaining lets AI do the heavy lifting. It can speed up all that tedious work. But the expert, whether that's a researcher, a strategist, or a creator, that person stays firmly in the driver's seat. Human judgment is, and always will be, irreplaceable.
So as we finish up here, the real question isn't if you should use prompt chaining, but how. Think about your own work, the complex problems you deal with every day. What's that first big task you're going to break down and turn into your own AI assembly line? Thanks for tuning in.